So now that we've taken our notes, let's go ahead and move on to the try it problems. So up here in the corner, I'm going to write try it. In this unit, you're going to be asked to consider whether the product of a fraction and another number is going to be greater than, less than, or equal to your starting amount. So let's write a couple different problems. To do this, I'm going to ask you to split your page into half. Let's split it in half. And then the top part, I'm going to have you split that in half. So we're really making 3 sections, 2 skinny sections and a bigger section. All right, so up here in the top, I am going to start with a problem. Let's start with 3 times 6/7, and I want to compare that to 6/7. So that big circle there is where I'm going to write my greater than, less than, or equal sign. So what it's really asking me here is it's saying if I have 3 times 6/7, would the product be greater than, less than, or equal to 6/7? So I have a couple ways to look at that. The first way that I like to look at it is when I look at this whole inequality, I look for what's the same on both sides. Because they're not really asking me to multiply and compare, they're asking me to think critically and look for patterns. And so when I look at this, I can see that both sides have this number 6/7, right? Both sides have 6/7. So that's something they have in common. The difference is, on one side, I'm multiplying by 3. And the other side, I'm not. So then I can think of it like this. This is one of my thinking strategies. I think, okay, let's imagine on each side I have a cup, and it holds 6/7 of a quart of juice. You can imagine whatever container you want, but it's going to hold 6/7. So this container itself is worth 6/7. So on this side where I just have 6/7, I'm going to fill it in to show 6/7. And then I have to think on the other side. If I had 3 times 6/7, does that mean I would partly fill the cup? Would I fill the entire cup one time? Or am I doing 6/7 lots of times? So many times, in fact, that it's going to overflow. And when I think about that, that's what's really happening. If this cup holds 6/7 of a quart of juice, and I put in 3 times that much, it's going to fill the cup and then overflow all over the counter. Because I did 6/7 3 times. When I look at it that way, it's easy to see which side has more. Another way to look at it is to think about that factor that I'm multiplying by. Right here, I am multiplying by 3. And when I look back at my notes over here, I can see that when I'm multiplying by a factor that's less than 1, the result gets smaller. When I multiply by a factor greater than 1, the result gets bigger. And when I multiply by a factor that's equal to 1, the result stays the same. And so over here, my starting amount was 6/7 on both sides. The factor that I'm multiplying by was 3. And 3 is greater than 1. So my answer is going to get bigger. So either way I look at it, whether I consider the factor or whether I use my draw it and overfill or underfill the cup strategy, I can see that 3 times 6/7 is going to be greater than 6/7. Let's try another one. For this one, I'm going to do 2 different fractions. This time I'm going to have 1/2, so I'm going to write it a tiny bit higher. 1/2, and I want to compare it with 1/2 times 3/4. So just like last time, I want to start off by looking for something they have in common. What's a common factor on both sides? Well, hopefully you noticed both sides have 1/2. There's my 1/2. They both have that. And then I can see that I'm multiplying one of those sides by 3/4. So I can use the overfill the cup strategy, right? I'm going to say, okay, here's my cup. And the cup is worth 1/2. It can hold 1/2 gallon of chocolate milk. So let's start by filling the cup. On this first side, right here, I have 1/2. So I'm going to fill that cup. That cup holds 1/2, and I'm going to fill it up. And then on the other side, my cup still holds 1/2, but I'm being asked to fill it 3/4 full because I'm multiplying by 3/4. So that means I'm not going to fill the cup all the way. I'm going to fill it 3/4 of the way full. When I look at my drawings, I can see which side is greater. I can see that 1/2 is greater than 3/4 of 1/2. And that totally makes sense. Because going back to my notes, we said over here, if I multiply by a factor that's less than 1, the result gets smaller. If I multiply by a factor greater than 1, the result gets bigger. And if I multiply by a factor equal to 1, the result stays the same. And when I look at this factor 3/4, my factor is less than 1. I didn't fill the whole cup. I filled it 3/4 of the way full. So because of that, once again, I'm going to put in my greater than symbol. 1/2 is greater than 1/2 times 3/4. All right, let's look at another problem type that you might see. This one's going to take a little writing, so we're going to write the problem. Here's a problem you might encounter. Which of the following is less than 5? Ooh, let's make it tricky. Which of the following is less than 2 5/8? So that's the question we're being asked. Which of the following is less than 2 5/8? And I'm going to zoom in so we can just focus on that. All right, and then often they'll give you a couple of examples, and then you have to decide. So let's do 2 5/8 times 3/9. 2 5/8 times 7/7. Ooh, let's be tricky. Let's say 1 1/8 times 2 5/8. All right, so we're going to look through here and figure out which of these is less than 2 5/8. So the starting strategy is to think, what's the number I'm comparing all of these expressions to? Well, I'm comparing all of them to 2 5/8 because I want to know if it is less than 2 5/8. So that's the big idea. So looking at this first expression here, I have 2 5/8 times 3/9. So I can highlight my 2 5/8. There's my common factor, which means the one I'm comparing it to is this 3/9. The question I have to ask myself is 3/9 less than 1, equal to 1, or greater than 1? Well, you should know by now that 3/9 is less than 1. And our strategy says that if I take an amount, for example, if I say, here's my cup holds 2 5/8, but I'm going to fill it 3/9 full, I'm going to fill it partly full. I'm not going to fill the whole thing. So if that cup holds 2 5/8, but I only fill it 3/9 full, my result will be less than 2 5/8. So I can give a check mark here. We found one. This one is less than 2 5/8 because I multiplied it by a factor that is less than 1. All right, let's check out the second option. Looking at that one, I can see, here's my 2 5/8. That's the factor that I have in common with what I'm trying to compare it to. So now let's look at what it's being multiplied by. Here I have 2 5/8 times 7/7. So when I look at this number 7/7, I have to ask myself, is it less than 1, equal to 1, or greater than 1? Hopefully by now you know 7/7 is equal to 1. So I can think of that like I have my cup. My cup is worth 2 5/8 because that's our common factor. And I'm trying to fill it 7/7 full. Well, since 7/7 is equal to 1, that means I'm going to fill the cup all the way full. Since I filled it all the way full, that tells me that 2 5/8 times 7/7 is going to be equal to 2 5/8. I just multiplied it by 1, which means it's not going to be less than 2 5/8. So that one does not work. Let's check out our last one. Here I have 1 1/8 times 2 5/8, and I want to compare it to 2 5/8. So first I have to find my common factor. For this one we flipped it, but for multiplication you can do that. It doesn't change based on the order. So I'm going to start with my 2 5/8. There it is. And I want to multiply by 1 5/8. So I need to think about this amount, 1 5/8. Is it less than 1, equal to 1, or greater than 1? Hopefully you know by now that a mixed number is going to be greater than 1. Since I'm multiplying by something that's greater than 1, I'm going to set up my cup that's worth 2 5/8 and start filling it up. I'm going to fill it up 1 1/8 times. So I'm going to fill it all the way up once. That's my 1. And then I'm going to fill it up 1/8 more. So it's starting to overflow. I can see that that cup is trying to hold more than 2 5/8 now because I've overfilled it. So 1 1/8 times 2 5/8 is going to be greater than 2 5/8 because I filled it up 1 1/8 times. So it won't be less than. It's too much. I multiplied by a factor that was greater than 1. So this is the strategy. I gave you 2 different ways to look at it and try them both out. Some might work better for you in some situations and some might help you in the other. I always look for the common factor because that helps me compare, and then I think about what's happening to that factor. Am I multiplying by a number that's greater than 1, so I'm making my number bigger? Am I multiplying by a number equal to 1, which keeps it the same? Or am I multiplying by a number that's less than 1, which leaves me with a smaller final amount?